Right, Rebecca, you're with me again today. Hello, although you're not, you're in Sheffield, and I'm not wherever this is supposed to be. I'm actually in Gloucester. Right, enough of the faffing about. Today, we're going to work on one of the best learning models I've ever come across and that I use extensively in all sorts of ways. Pause.
Excellent. Yep, so I'm looking forward to exploring this with you. It's not a model that I'm familiar with. So I'm going to be interviewing you in a very loose style to find out a little bit more about it.
Well, let's do that. Hey, so I call it off. It's what I call the difficult learning model. And the difficulty I've got straight away is that I want to make sure I'm on the right slide. So as it comes up, it should be blank. Not that blank, but it should come up now. There we go. So, Rebecca, this is what we got. We've got the competitive advantage from difficult learning, because that's what it's all about. It's not about learning for its own sake. It's the value that it brings. Two axes. What do you make of these two axes? He says, I'm putting you on the spot, interviewing you for a minute.
The learning difficulty, so I'm assuming that means whether it's high difficulty for the learner to interpret or complete or whatever, and then value to the learner and organisation. So is that around sort of how implementable it is, or is that, yeah, that what we're looking at?
Yeah, it's not about making things difficult for being difficult's sake. It's recognising that some things are just harder to work through than others. Some learning is easy, it's straightforward. I've been in the learning business 40 years. A lot of what I've done is not rocket science. This is how you do that, job done. Other learning is damn tough. It requires a lot of application, commitment, unlearning perhaps, hard work, time, all the things that people have got too little of. So yeah, it is about just that. The difficulty being the difficulty to the individual learner.
Okay, sounds good.
Are we ready for number one?
We are.
Hey, oh, there it comes. So we have low difficulty, low value.
So tell me a bit more about what you mean by low value. What would make it low value?
At its worst, absolutely pointless, worthless, no point in doing it, no return, no one learns anything. If they learn anything at all, it doesn't get used. If it's evaluated at all, which it rarely is, to discover that was something we need not have done.
If this now I'm going to risk saying something here. If there's some of the things that we have to do because we have to do it, rather than it actually being genuinely useful.
I think pragmatically, realistically, is an element of that. We've both done things. Certainly I have in my former corporate existence, worked for myself 30 years, but in the 10 years previously, I've done things like, what is the point of this? These people don't want to be here. These people aren't learning anything. These people are going through the motions. Or this learning has no value to these people who want it. There's all sorts of variables. For whatever reason, low difficulty means it doesn't take a lot of preparation, research, technical operations. It is very straightforward. It's low difficulty, but it's also low value. So it is a box in which there's very little satisfaction and very little tangible return to anybody.
Yeah, so not much point in it is what you're saying, really?
I'm afraid so. And I would say, I think there's too much of that going on.
Yeah, learning for learning's sake, not necessarily of value to anybody in particular.
And low risk. The attraction to a lot of providers is, hey, I can scoot through this. I don't look stupid. I don't get asked daft questions. I don't get challenged. I can stay well within my facilitator, if you like, competence. I'm not going to be made look daft. There's low risk, there's low return. So sometimes it's attractive to people like you and I to say, hey, this is all right, it's money for nothing.
Yeah, okay, I get that one.
But we never do it. So next one is to move upward in the low value box. The difference here is we've got high difficulty. Before we were saying, hey, that's an easy box to be in because there's no difficulty in doing it. There's just low return. Here we've also got low return, but it's hard work.
Which is even worse, actually. Or certainly is for the learner if it's high difficulty and they're still not getting much out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you give an example of what that might be?
Oh, you didn't tell me you'd be asking that daft question. Well, it's not daft. It's daft only as much as it makes me look stupid because I haven't thought about it. No.
Back to you on that one. That's your interest. That's your warning to come back to that one.
All right, I'll try. Because your question is absolutely legitimate. We're not talking theoretically here. This is a very practical model. So yeah, all right, there we go. I've been involved in coaching efforts, for instance, within organizations. You know, I tend to do business coaching stuff where I get 6, 8, and at the moment I'm working 16 people worldwide. So I don't tend to do one-to-one clients. I work in an organizational context.
Yeah.
I've worked in organizations where it's very high difficulty for me, for the provider, because the client, singular, doesn't want to do it, isn't interested, isn't engaged, has no will or desire to do anything as a result, tolerates me for the time I'm there and goes off and does nothing. That for me is difficult, because to get anything at all from that person is hard work, harder work than is possible. No, that's from the supplier perspective.
Yeah.
It could be really difficult from the learner perspective, even though it isn't particularly hard from the developer perspective, if you like. So there are two variables here, at least, if we're talking individually. We've got both parties potentially having a difficulty achieving low value.
Do you think we might risk going off track here? So I won't labour this point. Do you think the difficulty is due to the fact that maybe expectations or the objectives haven't been clarified beforehand? Is that something to do with it as well?
It could be that. It could be so many things. It could be a lack of perceived return and value. Is it worth me doing this? It could be difficult because it's stretching people to the limits of their own competence, and that could be the issue. Whatever, really. I'm being a bit wishy-washy here, but whatever causes the high difficulty for which other party, it brings low value. So it's not a box to be in. In a sense, the box we've just been in, low value, low difficulty, is a bit better, because at least you're not going to get tripped up in this box. You will.
Okay, so what's the next box then? So that's
the next box, right on cue, is moving into the high value areas. Now, not everything, of course, has got the same degree of high value. You could be at the extreme end of this, over there, so to speak, and think, wow, low difficulty, and look at all this return I'm getting. It's brilliant. The client will love it. I'll be back next year for this. Or it could be only just high value, almost low value. So there's the continuum is at work here too.
Yeah. So again, I mean, to me, this one sounds like it would be a good box to be in. It's low difficulty, potentially for me as a deliverer, but also potentially for my client who's learning.
Yeah.
And yet there's high value in there. So are you saying that there's still a better place to be?
Yeah, for me there is, because the next one, big surprise for anybody who's still with us, is going to be high difficulty, high value. Now, to me, that's more attractive in many ways, but let's stay this one for a bit. But you're right. This also is a matrix model that has a variable called, what do I get from this? Because I would want to be in the next box, because I like the challenge of difficult learning, bringing high value. But you're right, pragmatically, sensibly, this is a good place to be, because if you are the provider, if you are the coach, if you want to see it in that context, then without overstretching yourself, staying within your capabilities, comfortably in your capabilities, you've got a client that's giving you high returns. You've got a client that's saying, hey, give me more of this. I love it. You think, oh, great. All I've got to do is sit here and let them go.
Yeah.
And I think we've both been here too, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. And I can see where, what do you think some of the problems are then within this box?
Well, I'm not sure there are too many, because if it's working with low difficulty, you don't have to ramp it up. You don't have to make it harder. I think the key thing when you're in this box is to say, okay, this is working. Let's stay where we are, or let's be careful how we push it, because we could get into high difficulty before we know it and get less value. So it's a judgment call. And of course, it's a dynamic. During the course of any coaching conversation, you're going to move around. You might be in all of these boxes at different times, but where you want to be most of the time, I would agree, is in that bottom right box, because why make life more difficult for yourself if you're getting a good return, a good learning return from the conversation?
Yeah, so I guess for me, this indicates that it's going to be of value to the person, because either it's something that really makes a shift in them, or it's something that they can implement that makes their job or their life easier. Is that the way you would sort of measure that one?
Absolutely. By whatever measure, there is there is definitely tangibly and attributed something good coming from this in this box. But as I say, it's a dynamic. You don't stay in the same place and plot it all the time. You could probably plot 5 minutes by 5 minutes where a conversation is at any time in all of these.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you're saying you would move around on that, and I suppose I can see where you're coming at in terms of maybe it feels better if you've had to work at it as well. So I can understand that. So if I felt that this had been too something had been very easy to achieve, then is there as much value in it? Okay.
Well, if you think it's too easy, the temptation sometimes is to ramp it up a bit, to think, okay, I can push this. I'm finding this very straightforward. If I push it a bit, and then the thing is, you move into that box.
Yeah.
And I've got, I'm partly obscured by here. I don't know if this is coming through on the recording, but here we have high difficulty, high value. Now, I confess this is where I most like to be. But I'm a little bit of a masochist when it comes to learning. I like things to be quite tough.
Yeah, and are you saying that from a trainer's perspective or from a learner's perspective?
That's important, because it's not all about me. My wife constantly says it's not all about you. So it isn't all about me. About me, I get more satisfaction from being in this box because it pushes me. It confronts me to actually deliver. It sometimes takes me towards the edges of my own competence. That's great, but it isn't about me. It is about the learner. And so the difficulty could well be for both of us, or for the learner to say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I don't really get it. Help me some more about this. Hey, I like this, but my boss isn't going to support it, or the organization's not ready. For all sorts of reasons, there are things happening in this box that aren't happening in the one below it, where it's easier.
Okay, yeah, and I can see that if I've been challenged, then I might also get more from the experience as well. So as a learner, potentially, because I think there's potentially more of a transformative impact on this, yeah.
Or less, you could regress into other boxes and, oh no, you're pushing me too hard, or if it takes this, then I'm moving out of this box. I'm going into, I want the comfort as a learner of the less exposed box. So there's a lot happening in this very simple model.
Yeah, there is. I get that now. And also maybe the difficulty might not be around the content. It might be the way that it, or what it is getting you to think about. So I'm thinking about maybe in terms of a coaching scenario, that it's pushing you because it's getting you to be vulnerable about things, or opening up different things that perhaps, are more challenging. So not necessarily on a skill level, but more of maybe an emotional level. That could make it difficult as well, yeah.
If we dig around in this, we'll find plenty of variables. I think it's realistic. I think I can relate to this because I'm in all of these. When I'm in the bottom left box, if I bring them all in now, when I'm in the bottom left box, it can be a bit dull. It's a bit too easy. It's a bit too processional. When I'm in the top left box, you're thinking, well, this is hard work and we get nothing out of it. And then do you project that? Maybe the client's thinking, hey, this is great. And you're thinking, no, this is going nowhere.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that's also occurring to me is whether you're in the top or bottom right-hand box, you want to be to the far side. You want to be as near to the right, the highest value you can get at any one time.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's probably better to aim for the right side, whether either top or bottom, because there's more value to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And then making that judgment: do you need to push it? If you're getting a lot of value, stay where you are. You don't have to sort of change the dynamic.
So, in terms of, obviously, we've discussed the 4 boxes there. When would you use this model, or what would you use this model for?
Well, it would be a judgment call, but I think in a mature coaching relationship, it's a good model to say, okay, Rebecca, we've been working together for 6 months. Where do you think we typically are? Do you think we're too often in the bottom left box, where we're really not getting the most from this? Do you think we're often enough in the right-hand side? Do you think you're more in the top or the bottom right-hand side when we're over there? And it just, because I think the insights to a client are very powerful to say, yeah, I think you can push me a bit harder. I think I can push myself a bit harder. Or you don't know what you're going to get. But if you can get someone to understand and relate to this, I think they can tell you a lot more about the dynamic than you might see for yourself.
Yeah, so this is a good, so perhaps it makes a good sense checking tool as well, isn't it? So you might think, yes, we're in the top right hand corner, where actually they're thinking, oh, actually this is quite easy, this really. So yeah, that's, yeah, okay.
Or vice versa. You know, I think we're down here. Do you? Because I think we're over here.
Yeah, this is really challenging stuff. Yeah.
And you know, we are talking about working with individuals here, because this doesn't work in a group of 12, group of 50. God works in groups of 50 and more, because this is all about, for me, individual learning, getting close enough to plot someone's dynamic journey, even within a session or a series of them. So this most relates to working with individuals than with groups.
Yeah, and maybe this is a model that you could use before you start a learning journey with somebody as well. So where am I aiming to be at, and what would make it low value or high value as well? So you could use it as a bit of an initial sort of tool to get started.
I think that's a really good idea, because you can sit down with a client and say, okay, where do we start? Where do we go next? Where do we avoid? Where do you think you can comfortably be? Are you going to tell me when you think you are? So you're right. I like that, because if you say, okay, let's sit down, let's not move out of the bottom left box, because let's not give ourselves any grief.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be a very powerful conversation for me.
No, not really. Yeah, like you say, it could be quite boring for both you and the learner then as well. So.
But then what we think is boring could be, as you say, hard work for them. It provides the means for a dialogue, and I think that's important.
Yeah. So anything else that you would want us to know about this, or any sort of last points on it?
No, well done. That's a closing you down statement that I've been waiting for. No, I think that's covered a lot of what I really wanted to go through. I could go on forever about this, because I like it, I use it, I can relate to it. But I think we've covered most of the good things. I encourage people to use it. Either use it explicitly or use it in your own practice.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. I shall now try and hit the right button and end us, which hasn't happened yet. So we'll just talk here aimlessly. There it is up there. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you.